Okay, Barry, I'll be with you in a few minutes. This won't take long. Wasn't that remarkable? That is real footage of a warship that ran aground our shore here in Humboldt County near Manila, not too far from where I am right now, over 100 years ago. And this was a big military warship, 426 feet long, 10,000 tons. And they never were able to pull it out of the sand. And over the years, it's been stuck out here. It's settled down lower and lower into the sand. More sand's covered it up to the point that just a few topmost portions of the ship are poking up through the sand. Now, some of the more valuable metals, such as brass, were salvaged off the ship, but the ship is mostly there, just buried down deep in the sand. Now, the reason I'm here today is because local columnist and author Barry Evans has invited me to join him as he does his first ever aerial survey of the wreckage of the ship with his new drone. I first read about the details of this wreck in Barry's book, The Humboldt, and I've been intrigued with it ever since. I've never been able to see it, and now I get to go down there.
And off we go.
Okay, Barry, I'm almost done. Hey, hang tight. Okay, Barry is a real rush to get down there. That's because one of the complications of seeing the shipwreck is it can only be seen during extreme low tides. The rest of the time it's submerged under the waves. And that extreme low tide is just about now. And if we miss this one, Barry says there won't be another tide low enough for 3 or 4 months. Okay, a quick background. Why is there a ship stranded out there and buried in the sand? Well, in 1916 in December, several months before the United States entered World War I, a U.S. military submarine was patrolling off our coast, and in some real heavy fog, it ran aground right near here. So about a month later, in January, a couple of U.S. warships arrived to pull the submarine back into the ocean. One of those warships was a USS Milwaukee. Well, through a series of errors and blunders and, honestly, real poor judgment, the Milwaukee got stuck in the sand too. And it has been stuck in the sand out there to this day. So the might of the U.S. military could not save that submarine. But guess who did? Why, I'll tell you who did. Some Humboldt County locals did. Local contractor Mercer Fraser came out here, and they tried a completely different approach. Rather than trying to push it or pull it back out into the ocean, they came up with this idea of getting a bunch of logs, and they rolled the submarine up onto the beach, and they rolled it all the way across the sand spit that we're on now, about 3/4 of a mile into Humboldt Bay. And they saved the submarine. Now, they couldn't do that for the Milwaukee because the Milwaukee was much bigger and it just wouldn't work. But you have to really admire that good old Humboldt County can-do attitude. Oh, and there are so many more fascinating details of the story that have been written by Barry Evans and other local authors. I'll list them at the end of this video. Okay, Barry, Barry took off already. I got to go catch up with him. So join me and Barry Evans as we explore the shipwreck of the USS Milwaukee right here in Humboldt, outdoors. Oh, wow! What's left of the wreck of the USS Milwaukee? Gee! Oh, what a sight. And our timing's great because Barry is just now setting up his drone, so we'll be able to get to him before he takes flight.
She seemed to be a bit lower. I think every year she gets a bit lower in the sand. So I'm just doing an overfly of everything we can see here. I really have to imagine there is a ship under the sand here.
So
all we're seeing is the very tip of the superstructure.
Wow.
Right now.
Wow.
There is a whole ship.
Well, this has been a great experience. Thanks for bringing me along on this adventure, Barry.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why, I mean, if we're going to be, you know, in Humboldt outdoors, then Humboldt.
Humboldt Outdoors. I love that name. You know, when Barry invited me on that field trip last year, it was the first time I had ever seen the USS Milwaukee shipwreck, and all I knew about it is what I read in his book, the Book, and that was just one chapter amongst many stories in that book. Well, since then I've learned a great deal more about the USS Milwaukee shipwreck story through research and also by coming here to the Humboldt Bay Maritime Museum and meeting the very knowledgeable docent, Don Hofacker. And they also have a great exhibit on the USS Milwaukee that includes a number of artifacts that were salvaged from the ship, including this one right here. This is a cowl vent that used to be mounted on the deck of the USS Milwaukee. So with all that research, a visit here to this museum and talking with Don, I realized there's a lot more to this story that we would like to cover in a future episode of Humboldt Outdoors. First off, we learned that there was an archaeological survey done of the site in 2019. Now that survey didn't just look at what remained of the shipwreck, it also looked on the onshore area. Because you see, the other part of the story is there was an extensive salvage effort that occurred on the ship for many months to remove all the valuable materials off of the ship. And during that salvage effort, an entire camp was established called Camp Milwaukee. And one of the archaeologists from that study has offered to meet us there and give us a tour and tell us what they discovered during their archaeological survey. Also, I want to get out there and get some better footage of the wreck itself during low tide. Barry explained to me that low tides can vary a lot based on climatic conditions. Offshore currents, winds, even barometric pressure can affect how low the tide gets. And he said, unfortunately, that day that he went out there and did the drone footage, well, the conditions were not real favorable, and so the tide was not as low as it was predicted to be. Also, a local historian has offered to tell us more details about the USS Milwaukee shipwreck incident. You know, if you want to get going on learning more about the USS Milwaukee maritime disaster on your own, well, this would be a great place to start, the Humboldt Bay Maritime Museum. They have a great exhibit, and Don can fill in some of the details for you. There's also several great books and articles written that are available at the Humboldt County Library and/or local bookstores. I'll list them at the credits at the end of this episode. Or during the next low tide, just head out to the USS Milwaukee site in Samoa and go out there and see what's left of the ship for yourself. I gotta say, when I first saw it with Barry, I was pretty awestruck. So I invite you to join us in the next episode as we explore and learn more about the USS Milwaukee shipwreck that occurred over 100 years ago right here in Humboldt Outdoors.